So, ladies and gentlemen, today we have with us one of the most famous stand-up comedian, Papa CJ, multifaceted personality. If I talk anything about him, will be much less because he is a great influencer, motivational speaker, he's an executive coach, and whatnot. He has been doing a lot of social work to help people. And what, in fact, inspired me to get him on the show, which I call it a passion warrior, that he is the one person who has chosen his passion over the profession. And that really inspired me. And he is a real passion warrior. So before I talk much about him, let me ask Papa CJ himself that how his journey started from a corporate professional to a passion warrior. I will term him as a passion warrior. He's a warrior. He's doing through his passion a lot of good work throughout the world, not in India, but throughout the world. So, Papa, let's have it from you that how you started, because you have been did an MBA from a Oxford, a premier institution where the people dream about doing something from the Oxford University. Then you got a wonderful corporate job. You worked there for some time, and then finally you found your passion of stand-up comedy, and through that you started doing a lot of social work. So let's hear from you that how this journey started, Papa.
Firstly, sir, thank you so much for your kind words. You are far too generous in your praise. As regards my journey, I think, we grow up, especially when you're brought up in India, we are brought up with this whole concept of you should settle down. Now, when you grow up in a middle-class family, what does that mean? It means you do your school, you do your college, you maybe do a master's degree, you get a job, you work in it for a few years, you get married, you have 2 children, then you're settled. That is the traditional model.
Yes.
And often when you grow up with families that don't have a lot of financial backing, don't have a business of your own, then you sometimes don't have the luxury to dream. At least when I was growing up, that mindset wasn't there. In general in society. That being said, my parents have always encouraged me to, find whatever it is that you love doing. But within the constraints of the financial constraints that we had.
I know.
So when I started out, I had no choice but to follow that path. And my father worked for a tea company for 35 years. So I took a loan, got to Oxford University, did the MBA, and then it took me 4 or 5 years to pay back those loans, which is when I took up a consulting job in London. As regards following my passion, I think with all journeys, a lot of it is just chance and opportunity and luck and circumstance. I didn't suddenly see stand-up comedy and decide, oh, this is what I want to do. I actually hated my job. I joined IBM in London in the year 2000. That's when the dot-com crash happened. People were losing jobs left, right, and center. I was in a consulting division. I wasn't getting put on projects. I had 6 different jobs within 3 years in the company itself. So my career path wasn't really going anywhere. And then the company had a scheme where they were offering sabbaticals. You could take 1 year off with the security of having a job waiting for you when you came back. So that's when I took the year off. And that's when I saw stand-up comedy for the first time. And I thought it was the most amazing thing ever. I mean, here was a guy on stage just having fun. And that was his job. So that was the first time. I started doing stand-up 3 months after that. But it was the first time I found something that I was passionate about. Even as a kid in school, I was generally quite good at studies. I was good at sports, but I wanted to win. I wanted to achieve things, but that didn't mean that I was necessarily passionate about it or that I thoroughly loved doing it. This was the first time I had found that. So I did 250 shows in my first 10 months.
Great.
Then I went broke because you earn nothing when you start doing stand-up comedy. So I joined a recruitment firm. I used to work in the day, perform at night. But even though I was working for 8 hours a day and performing for 10 minutes a night, in my head, I was a stand-up comedian. And the job was on the side. I was doing that to support my comedy habit, so to say. And then eventually I got into executive coaching. I did about 700 shows in London over 3 years, and then decided to move back to India. For me, home is where the heart is, and my heart has always been in India, where my family is. So then I came back here. There was no English language stand-up. There wasn't really a stand-up circuit. After doing a couple of tours across the country in 2008, I set up the comedy circuit in Delhi in 2009. And since then, things have slowly grown over time.
Fantastic.
But yeah, so that's largely the journey.
Papa, you said that during this journey, in the beginning, you gone broke. And I have read somewhere, or rather listened somewhere, that you didn't have a relationship, you didn't have a money, you didn't have a friends, and you didn't have anything. So that was a kind of absolute failure. But what I say, that was a failure of the friendship, that was a failure of the relationship. But that was not the failure of Papa CJ. That was not a failure of Papa CJ as an individual. So you took those failure of relationship or friendship or money as a failure forward. You took it in that perspective, and you came out of that so brilliantly that today it is well known to everyone that how successful Papa CJ is.
I'd say, sir, I would never call it. Firstly, I don't believe in the term failure. It's just, it's a journey. You undertake a journey in life and you go through ups and downs.
Yes.
And that's a part of life, Also, I would never ever put a blame on anybody else. I don't think I can ever accuse my friends of failing to be good friends. But the fact is, in that first year of stand-up, when I did 250 shows in 10 months, that was the only thing I dedicated my life to. I couldn't think of anything else. So if there was a so-called failure of friendship, it was probably a failure on my part, because I was not giving time and attention to anybody else for them to be able to play an active part in my life. My soul, I was eating, drinking, sleeping, thinking stand-up comedy. So I'm not the kind of person who would ever point a finger at anybody else, but it's important to take responsibility for your actions and understand that when you make choices, they have certain repercussions. And that's a part of life. So you need to make your choices accordingly.
The wonderful point you made it, that for every action and outcome, you are responsible, individually responsible. And one should understand that being responsible is the only way. And that is what you did. And that is where you are today. And it's a great learning that shows that you did not take it as a failure. It is a first step toward to become successful. So that is what you did basically. Papa, you have been doing this lot of social work, and I have been reading that about you, that you have a project called Papa CJ Happiness Program, and under which you have been visiting a lot of hospitals, visiting individuals who are terminally ill. And it's a great work one can do, that to bring a smile on somebody's face. I think that is the toughest task, to bring a smile on a face of a person who is terminally ill, who is in the hospital. And you are going there personally and doing that great work. Could you just tell something about that? Because I'm really touched about this work.
I think, sir, I don't know if what I'm doing is great work, but I think that, each one of us, so it's called the Papa CJ Happiness Project, or the Happiness Project. And I don't have a systematic method of, it's not that it's a program that runs long term. Each year I try and find different ways in which, within the limited skill set that I do have, that I can help uplift other people or make their lives better. So 1 year it was, I did, I think 7 shows in 6 cities over a span of 2 weeks. And we raised about 45 lakhs for 10 different charities across the country. 1 year, I started going, like you said, to people's homes, to people's hospital rooms, people who had been unwell for a while, and entertaining just them and their families, sometimes 2 people, 6 people. 1 year, I put out an open offer for an entire month that I would have coffee with one person once a day for an hour. Anybody who had been feeling down or needed somebody to talk to, Of course, I put forward straight that I'm not a qualified medical professional or a therapist, but I'm just happy to listen, because I found that in an age where we have so many, so to say, friends and followers on social media, that when you are actually feeling low, you sometimes have nobody to talk to. And it's difficult to talk to people closest to you because you don't want to show them your vulnerability. You don't want to show them your suffering. So it helps to have just a stranger to speak to who will not judge you and just listen to you and will not even offer you advice unless you ask for it, So I did that. So I don't know if I truly believe that each one of us has an ability to make somebody else's life better. And it doesn't have to be at scale. You don't have to change a million lives, There's that wonderful story about a father and son walking on the beach. And this little kid keeps throwing these fish back into the ocean.
Yeah.
And the father says, son, you can't save all the fish. He said, yes, but I can save these ones.
Yes.
So, I think we all have the capacity to give in our own way and to improve other people's lives or help them. And whatever we can do in our own capacity, we should do if we can.
So wonderful, so much of learning from that. I fully agree with you that yes, we can do our bit to impact the world, whatever little way we can do, and that's what we can learn and see from you. I have read about your book, CJ, that Naked, and where you talked about your vulnerability. Vulnerability is not a weakness. Vulnerability is something very courageous thing one can show. It is your ability to show up and be seen at your weakest point, or where you can't have a control over the situation. That is the vulnerability. And if somebody becoming vulnerable, that means he's becoming the most courageous. And that is what you have done in your book, that is the Naked. Though I have not gone through the completely, I have read the reviews and I have heard in your videos. I would like to know a little more about this book and this project, which is a wonderful project.
So the book, it's an autobiography. I'm hoping it's part 1. I'm too young to be writing an autobiography. Okay. It's based on a show. So a publisher saw the show and said, listen, this should be a book. So I obliged. Essentially, the ethos behind Naked is that as human beings, we build walls around ourselves that hide our deepest hopes and fears and desires. Over the course of the book and the show, one brick at a time, I'm removing these walls. I'm exposing myself with all my vulnerability, all my pain. It is terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. But at the end of it, while you are completely naked, you are completely free. I'm using the vehicle of my life to talk about the human experience. Every single person who is reading that book at some point is thinking, he's not talking about his life, he's talking about my life. I have been through this. And as a result of that, you are able to create a very strong connection with your audience, with your reader, because they connect what you call vulnerability. They connect with your humanity. You are saying things that they have felt, but maybe haven't been comfortable enough to speak about publicly. And I think in that vulnerability, you find that human connection. And that is a beautiful thing.
In fact, the phrase which you used is that completely naked means you are completely free. You have got a freedom. And that kind of feeling you rarely get, that when you feel completely free, not under pressure of anyone.
I think so. That's also, that kind of thinking is a product of the profession that I've been in for the last 16 years, 17 almost.
Yeah.
With stand-up comedy, we operate in in an environment that has no rules, no boundaries, no guidelines, no social norms. Nobody's saying this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. Uh, at least originally when I started doing it in London. And you'll also know this, that, in our education system, when we grow up, uh, at least the way we were taught, we were told this is the right answer.
Yes.
Suddenly you go to a university like Oxford and they ask you, what do you think? And you're saying, what do you mean, what do I think? You're the teacher. You tell me what I'm supposed to think, right?
Yeah.
So you have to unlearn and
Unlearn and learn.
yeah, you have to unlearn and learn again and start thinking for yourself.
Yes. Yes.
So the beauty of that is that even in comedy, they say it takes you 10 years to find your own voice before you're comfortable being yourself on stage. First you're trying to please them, Are yaar, inko ye pasand hai. And, they'll like this, let me do this. Or, let me try and portray. But eventually what happens is you find your own voice and then you say, listen, this is me. If it works for you, fine. If it doesn't work for you, also fine. I respect that,
Absolutely.
And your audience will find you.
Yes.
So you become very truthful, almost blunt, saying, boss, this is my point of view.
Yes.
And this is my truth. So I think that's a beautiful journey to go through as a human being. And I'm extremely grateful to stand-up comedy for helping me go through this journey. And it has impacted every aspect of my life.
And becoming completely free.
Yes. And well, in today's context, becoming free means nobody pays for your tickets either, but it's not that kind of free.
No. That what matters and what counts is the great work being done. Rest, everything is aside, but the work is always remembered, and that is what you have been doing it. Another related with this is, CJ, that you have found a concept of naked leadership. In fact, I somehow got truly inspired or intrigued with this term of naked leadership. You may like to let us know little naked leadership, because it's a wonderful concept, I believe.
So here's the thing, sir. You can only be the second best Steve Jobs in the world.
Yeah.
Right? But you can be the best Tyagvir Raghava.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Now the problem is we grow up, or we are always brought up thinking you should be like Bill Gates, you should be like so-and-so, you should be like Nandan Nilekani, you should be like... But I think, and again, this builds on the foundation of my book and my show, the idea is to be authentic. The idea is to be vulnerable, to be completely truthful about who you are, what your values are, and then to build on that.
Yes.
So naked leadership kind of builds on my show and my book. And I essentially, to start with, make the audience or make the people who I'm coaching watch that show. That puts them in a frame of mind, because I have been so vulnerable in front of them, for them to again open up and be vulnerable and be honest, and to then start building on that foundation. So that's the idea behind it. There are a lot of things that people take away from that session. Risk-taking, vulnerability, authenticity, storytelling, communication, gratitude is a big takeaway.
Yes, yes.
But essentially, it's about coming from a place of truth, and your own truth, which might be different to somebody else's truth and values and beliefs.
So basically being authentic and transparent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a big, huge concept. It's a huge concept and huge learning in that. There is no denying from the fact that being authentic can only bring you success in this world. There is no other way out. Moving forward, CJ, that we see in today's corporate world, especially these mid-career professionals, they got a lot of hardships. I have been for, say, around now 15 years in the corporate, and I have seen that at the mid-career level, the people suffer a lot. And even if they are aware that they are suffering, they are stagnant, they are stinking because of the multifaceted problem around them, but still they are stick to that job and they can't take decisions. Could you suggest something that how they should get over this?
So there are two questions I tend to ask people.
Yeah.
Firstly, I think a lot of suffering comes from comparison.
Yes.
Right? And the problem is you compare yourself with people who are what in your mind is better off than you.
Yeah.
Right? Why don't you compare yourself to the person who's on the street corner at a traffic light, having to beg so he can have a meal that day?
Yeah.
So that's one mistake that people make. But here are two questions I tend to ask people. The first question is this: if you had $1 billion in the bank, how would you spend your time?
Yeah.
Not what would you buy, how would you spend your time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people, what they do is they say, oh, I'll travel. Okay, where will you travel? I will go to Europe. Okay, how long will you go for? I'll go for 1 month. When you actually do the mathematics and calculate the cost of going to Europe for 1 month, I mean, there's a book called The Frommer's Guide on $50 a day sort of thing. What I try to get them to is the fact that the cost of your dreams is far lower than whatever imaginary figure you might have in your mind.
Correct.
Most people have not done that mathematics.
Okay.
The second question I ask people is, how much money do you need until you die? Actually take out a piece of paper, make a spreadsheet if you have to, and calculate from today till the day I die, this is how much money I need. From that, you subtract, calculate everything, cost of living, holidays, medical, children's education. From that, you subtract everything you already have, all your assets. You're left with a number. You divide that number by the amount of working years you have left. 90% of people I do this exercise with find out that the amount of money that they need to earn per year is far lower than what they're already earning. Okay. Why are you then killing yourself 15 hours a day, 6 days a week?
Yes.
When you can work for 4 months a year.
Yes.
Or when you can work 5 hours a day.
Yes.
And still achieve the amount of money. But the problem is we think, oh my God, I have so much pressure. I have so much responsibility. I have to earn this. After I get 20 years later, I'll get this pot of money. Then I'll relax.
Yeah.
They do the mathematics, figure out what the exact number is. And today, if there is a blessing to what the world has gone through, the suffering that the world has gone through because of this pandemic, the fact is that today, a lot of jobs, you don't have to go to an office anymore.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You can live in a healthier environment.
Absolutely.
You can live in a space where the cost of living is lower. You can raise the quality of your life. You don't have to spend time on the road commuting.
Yes. Yes.
Why are you still forcing yourself to live in, big cities with pollution and noise and chaos and a higher cost of living?
Yes.
So I think a lot of us spend too much time not addressing the problems. We just think, there's a problem. Break it down. Like, as they say, how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is, one bite at a time.
Yes.
Break it down to small bites. In coaching, we talk about outcome goals and process goals.
Yeah.
Right? An outcome goal is saying, I want to win the Cricket World Cup. That's no use to me. How do I train to win the Cricket World Cup?
Yeah.
Right? But a process goal is, okay, my batting needs to be better. My fielding needs to be better. My bowling needs to be better. Okay, in the fielding, my catching needs to be better. So I have to practice ensuring that I cup my hands properly and catch a certain kind of catch. Yeah. So that is now a process goal. You've broken it down to a small bit.
Yes.
So have you analyzed those things? Have you actually looked at your life as a business strategy and broken it down to smaller pieces where you can actually take real actions, which will then affect the larger outcome? Too many of us don't do that. We don't take the time out to do that.
Yes. Actually, they don't have a time to think about themselves and the problems. And what you really brought out, that very profound learning, that break the bigger elephant of problem into the small pieces, then attack one by one. And that
Yes.
is the process. That is the process.
Yes.
And basically that what I think is come because they get into the caught up into that 9 to 5 job business so much, then they stop thinking about the fulfillment and the significance in the life.
Again, sir, I mean, what you and I have also spoken is a broad, generic blanket statement. We
Yes.
also have to respect that it is different for different people.
Of
So
course.
we can't really give an answer that applies to everybody.
Of course.
And you have to respect their individual circumstances and situation.
Of course.
So of course, I'm just giving you a broad statement.
Yeah.
With due respect to anybody listening,
Absolutely.
yes, your circumstances might be quite different, and the two of us need to respect that as well.
Absolutely. I fully respect that. There is no denying from that fact. So finally, CJ, like those who are listening that program, and especially our maybe the mid-career professionals, and especially the professionals or our young people, what is the one good message you would like to give them to make their life little better, or they should think towards that with your experience, so much experience in your mentorship, the coaching and the inspirational as a speaker, TEDx speaker, Josh speaker, one message which really make them feel better and take action on that.
I find that if you can try in whatever capacity possible to improve the lives of the people around you, then your life will get better. You will get far more joy from giving than receiving. If you can try and help other people in whatever small or large capacity with zero expectation of them doing something for you in return.
Yes.
I promise you, these people will seek out opportunities to try and help you. You know, the world is not a competition. I don't believe it is. I believe that if you can help your fellow human being, you know, as they say, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Don't try and lift your boat. Try and lift the tide.
Yes.
And if the tide rises, so will you. And it's beautiful to be able to have that kind of community around you that is supporting you and wishing that you do well. So if I was to give one piece of advice, that's the advice I would give.
No, so wonderful, so wonderful. Yes, if you impact the life of others, necessarily you feel fulfillment, and there is nothing better than getting the fulfilled in the life. CJ, it's very nice talking to you, and so wonderful and so profound learning on every answer of yours. We are really thankful to have you on this show, and wish that we will meet sometime once again and have such wonderful discussion few more times. In fact, I am also working on a book where I say the win life like a warrior. And I have just made the mind map so far, but I have yet to work for this. And let me see whenever it comes through, that time I will again interact with you. So thank you so much, CJ. And